Every internal auditor knows the frustration. You flag a critical control failure, management promises closer monitoring, and 12 months later, you write the exact same finding again. This loop of recurring failures occurs because of a fundamental misdiagnosis at the very foundation of the audit. We call this the symptom fallacy. It is the error of looking at the immediate, visible point of failure and assuming it is the actual problem, ignoring the architectural weakness that allowed the slip to occur. When auditors document the symptom as the official finding, they create recommendations that act as band-aids over bullet holes. They address the bleed, but not the trajectory. Confusing a symptom for a root cause ensures the environmental conditions that created the failure remain untouched for the next audit cycle. Let's look at a specific scenario. A statutory return is delayed or left unfiled. The resulting audit report almost always looks exactly like this. The finance team usually defaults to a standard list of excuses. They cite lack of oversight, tight resource constraints, or simple human error. These generic statements offer zero actionable value. They simply take the observation that the return was late and restate it using different vocabulary without offering a mechanical fix to the process. If you tell a chief financial officer that their department lacks oversight, you immediately trigger a defensive posture. They're left frustrated because you haven't told them how to actually engineer a solution. If a recommendation does not explicitly tell a process owner how to rebuild their systemic design, it isn't an audit finding. It is merely a reprimand. Uncovering the real architectural flaw means stepping out of the compliance checker mindset. You have to interrogate the process design as a consultant. This diagram shows a 4-vector matrix we use to map out hidden operational risks. First, we look at awareness and tracking. We need to know if compliance dates are automated or rely on a local Excel spreadsheet. Second, we map the upstream dependencies. A return cannot be filed without raw inputs. We document exactly which department supplies that data and when they deliver it. Third is role clarity. We verify if the preparation and review stages are explicitly separated into a documented maker and checker workflow. Finally, we look at external reliance. If an external tax consultant handles the actual filing, we define their service level agreements and the fail-safes we have in place to track their delays. True root cause analysis demands that you interrogate the environment first, well before you ever evaluate the human executing the task within it. To drill down through that environment, we apply the 5 whys methodology. Let's return to our delayed statutory filing. The surface-level excuse is simple. The lead accountant called in sick on the absolute final due date. We run the first why. Why was the return delayed? Because the accountant who prepares it was absent. Why did a single absence cause a statutory default? Because no one else had the portal login credentials. Why did no one else have access? Because there is no documented cross-training matrix or standard operating procedure. Why was the task still pending on the final allowable day? Because waiting until the deadline is a habit. And finally, why is that waiting a habit? Because the upstream sales team never provides the final revenue data until the afternoon before the deadline. The failure wasn't the employee catching a cold. The workflow was designed to collapse the moment it encountered a normal human variable. This timeline illustrates what the 5 whys exercise just isolated, 2 distinct structural defects. The first is a lack of process buffer. By waiting until the absolute deadline, the process creates a single point of failure, leaving zero margin. A routine system outage or a single sick day becomes fatal to the compliance record. And this delay isn't arbitrary. Upstream data delays force the finance team into an operational corner. The finance department is quietly absorbing the compliance risk generated by the sales department's inefficiency. Upstream bottlenecks secretly consume the compliance buffer. When the deadline is missed, the finance team acts as a convenient scapegoat for what is actually cross-departmental indiscipline. The logic tree also exposes the second critical flaw, key person dependency. Relying entirely on one individual's memory leaves the company with zero structural resilience. Unshared login credentials mean this scenario represents a breakdown in business continuity planning at the micro-operational level. Allowing critical compliance duties to exist exclusively inside a single employee's head is a dereliction of basic risk management. Now we pivot from diagnosis to solution. An auditor becomes a strategic risk advisor by providing recommendations that actually re-engineer the workflow. To fix the process buffer, we establish a hard internal deadline for the task, scheduled at least 3 days prior to the actual statutory requirement. This dashboard illustrates how we enforce upstream accountability. We implement strict, non-negotiable cutoff dates for the sales team to provide their input data. This transfers the risk directly back to its source. To eliminate key person dependency, we mandate cross-training across all filings, documented clearly within a maker-checker delegation matrix. Portal credentials must be securely managed and accessible by authorized secondary personnel. We tie this to an automated critical task delegation checklist that instantly triggers the moment a key employee is marked absent. Engineered operational resilience builds systemic fail-safes into the workflow, reducing the reliance on perfect human execution. Bypassing vague symptoms to uncover hidden dependencies and missing process buffers elevates an audit from a basic policing exercise to high-value consultancy. This rigorous approach to root cause analysis is exactly what separates an average junior checker from an indispensable strategic advisor. The probing framework and the 5 whys are just the first tools in our broader methodology for mastering root cause analysis. Internal audit achieves its peak value by restructuring the environment so that the specific breakdown identified must navigate multiple layers of defensive design before it can recur.